This is an ultimate global podcast. Hello, and welcome to our Daily Dose podcast, covering all about day-to-day global affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.
Hello, good evening to everyone joining us from Sydney and around the world. Welcome again to our Daily Dose podcast at UGP. And today we have got a very special guest again joining us from Sydney. His name is Shubham Baid, and he's studying Masters of Commerce at UNSW Sydney. Welcome to today's Daily Dose, Shubham.
Thank you so much, Saurabh, for having me here. It's definitely great to be a part of UGP and spreading the word of the good work that you're doing over here. And obviously, as young leaders and entrepreneurs ourselves, it is important that we discuss on the international issues and spread that awareness from our end.
Sure. Great to have you here. Just to start with today's Daily Dose, we have got great news for Australia with the 38% of the people now fully vaccinated and 62% of people getting one dose of vaccination. It's adding to the good news we have got from Scott Morrison yesterday that Australia has successfully secured another 4 million doses of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines coming from the United States. And those doses will in fact be coming in the next couple of weeks. The first shipment of those doses, which will be containing 292,000 doses, will be coming in the first shipment, and then it will be followed up with the second shipment coming soon. Successfully, it has been the second deal for Australia after they were able to grab 500,000 doses from Singapore. Were you able to go through that, Shubham?
Oh, definitely. I think it is a wonderful news. And given that Australia has already been in lockdown for 2 years now, their international borders are shut, it is great news, especially for the people who want to go back to their home countries and come back, the international students who are here. It is definitely great news for them because the rate at which the acceleration of vaccination increases, the better it is for Australia and everyone over here. Well, what do you think about that in that perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the more we increase the rate of that vaccination that we are looking at, the faster it will be for us to open up the economies, not only in Australia, but also around the world. And that's what we are seeing in Europe now. Because of the rapid, opening of the schools, there is also this big question that how will the schools open in Europe? And I think the same question needs to be answered for Australia in a couple of months. So it's a good blueprint for us to see what's going on in Europe at the moment, where the students are asked to come with their mask in plexiglass cubicles. And we know that more than 12 million students have resumed their classes, face-to-face classes. And WHO and UNICEF has already supported this fact that the schools across Europe should continue to stay open in the coming days. And that's a clear message to the other countries as well, isn't it? Because, you and I can't even imagine our childhood days without going to face-to-face class, studying virtually, in those times, because those are the times when you want to really go out, mingle up with your friends. What do you have to say? Could you even think
definitely.
In your childhood?
To be honest, even now, if you go about that, it's really difficult for us as well as adults to go out just keeping our masks on, right? We are social creatures and social beings as humans, and we want to interact. And the early days of a childhood are the times when you are exposed to so many things, and your school life plays a major role in it. Absolutely right. So I think it definitely is a very good move. But again, it comes in the difference in policies and structures as well, right? When we talk about Europe, they've moved from dealing with COVID strategy to living with COVID strategy. Now that has facilitated this move for them. Now, as soon as other countries can also incorporate a move like that by increasing their vaccination rates, so that even the citizens there are secure enough, they feel they should be secure enough, and given there's less pressure on healthcare, this would be a great initiative for other countries as well. It definitely, I think, it sets a very good benchmark.
Absolutely. And this pandemic has been the most disruptive element of a child's education. Because as I said, that we cannot even imagine, if I'm a small kid who is 4 years old or 5 years old, I cannot imagine studying online in an environment where I have to talk to my friends over a computer. I have to do everything over a computer. But continuing from that story, we have got a couple of other stories trending around the world. One of those stories is related to this, again, COVID-19 situation in Thailand. Thousands of protesters have gathered in Thailand's capital who are demanding the prime minister's resignation,
Resignation.
the Prime Minister Prayut's resignation, who has failed to keep the promise of providing the sufficient amount of COVID-19 vaccines in the countries. And in fact, the demonstrators are blaming the Prime Minister Prayut for his handling of the pandemic and criticizing his policies for immense amount of corruption also lagging in the country. If we look at the figures of Thailand, just 13% of Thailand's population of more
Has
than
been
60
vaccinated.
have been fully vaccinated, and more than 1.2 million infections till now, with 12,000 deaths have occurred in this country. Were you able to have a
Absolutely.
sense of what's going on, Shubham?
Yes, I did get a chance to go through the numbers and do a little more research on what they are, right? Thailand, again, is one of the countries with a bit of a higher rate of corruption as well. So, definitely, when your citizens come out and blame you for certain things, there have been certain lags. That is why they are taking that step. Right. So it is important to analyze and see whether it is actually the case or is it something else as well which is causing this disruption in the system. If you look at a country like Thailand with a population of around 70 million, right? The vaccination rate is 10%. I think from that perspective, the vaccination rates are definitely low. But there are other countries as well in which the vaccination rate is similar. So definitely, if you look at this perspective, then I think they are right to come out and protest. But again, when you talk about coming out and protesting, they are aiding in increasing the spread of the virus instead of curbing that. So what do you think? Is it all okay to protest in a manner like that?
Absolutely. The 2 points which you have raised, one is related to the vaccination rate. I think the main point the audience of Thailand is raising is not related to the vaccination rate, but it's more related to the fact that the Thailand government have failed to procure enough vaccines and have a plan for the near future. So, for example, in Australian government has already procured vaccines, enough vaccines for the next couple of months. From here on, now they have to just market it so that the people can vaccinate themselves. So the problem is with the procurement of the vaccines, which the Thailand
Hmm.
government has completely failed into. The second point which you raised is actually related to a great fact, which I always feel that during a lockdown, the most important element for you is to follow this order of staying at home. If you cannot stay at home, then it's very hard for the Delta variant or any kind of variants to stop transmitting from individual to individual. And even if you cannot if you can just stay within your community, within your bubble that you have created, a group of your friends or a group of your family members, just don't break that bubble. Otherwise you're going to further spread the transmission from one person to another. The best ways of having a protest in this environment, go for an online protest. That's the best way. There are so many portals nowadays where you can form your Facebook groups, you can form your meetup groups and start protesting against something, and you can have a signed petition. You can sign the petition from 100,000, 200,000 people and then send it to the Prime Minister of Thailand. It might not be that effective, obviously, but at least to some extent it adds value. When we are in a lockdown, we need to be very careful of this, and what has happened is now it's going to further aggravate the situation, as you just pointed out.
Absolutely. I think one thing that you actually raised very well is that it's not just about the signed petitions, but what we were discussing previously is about how living with COVID, right? Living with COVID is possible when your vaccination rates are high. And with that low a vaccination rate, it definitely isn't possible to live with COVID. So I think that is one of the reasons, because the Thailand government did take an approach of living with COVID without having that high vaccination rates. So it definitely hinders the growth of the general public as well. And that aggravates the situation psychologically for them.
Absolutely. Moving from the Thailand story, another big story trending, which has been trending, as I said to our yesterday's attendee as well, that the Afghanistan story has now been trending for around a month or so, and it's quite scary of what's happening after we see that the government is being formed, and we see all kinds of signs that the women's images are being scrapped off the capital. And from here on, I think the countries like Qatar and Turkey are expected to play a key role. In fact, we see that there is a meeting being called on Monday by the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and he's hosting a set of countries, including Canada, France, Germany, Japan, UK, Turkey, NATO, and obviously Qatar, because Qatar is playing a very key role in acting as a mediator between the United States and the Taliban. We know that Qatar has got good relations on both the sides, and it can really play that role between the two, angles to get the world out of this situation and help Afghanistan in these tough times. And we also know that no one has played a better role in the evacuation process which is going on now than Qatar at this point of time. So the world is actually looking at Qatar and Turkey, who can act as those key mediators in this situation, isn't it, Shubham?
Absolutely, Saurabh. If you look at Qatar's positioning, it hasn't just been a mediator now, but if you look at the history, it's been a mediator between the US and Taliban as like since 2013, when President Obama took the first step about setting up a meeting with the Taliban and deciding on whether they should pull back from Afghanistan. Since then, they have been playing a very important role, because Qatar is also heavily backed by US forces. And to a huge extent, they rely on the US forces for help against the other countries in that region, right? So, given that particular positioning that they have, it is very important that they set themselves in a place that on geopolitical level, they are visible. But definitely, if they have relations, good relations with both parties, and they have that influence to mediate talks, then why not? Today, we live in a world where more than arms, the world can be better through dialogue. So
Absolutely.
it is, I think, like when definitely Afghanistan government has been crippled down, and Taliban has taken over entirely in Afghanistan, it is important now that the world also starts looking at it from a point of view where they can incorporate Taliban as well as the leaders. Again, it is one person's opinion, right? And there are different ways of looking at it. But from what I see at the moment, that it's not just our opinion, I think, Saurabh, but a lot of the other countries as well are taking a huge step towards building new relations with Taliban.
Absolutely. And that's why you see these international UN agencies, they are looking at Qatar as an important country because they know that it can act as a key player in this situation when a lot of doubts are, they are hovering around how the future of Afghanistan will look like, especially for the restrictions on women and all those things. We'll be joined by Mariam Popal Zahid on Monday, and we'll be talking about that in detail, definitely. One of the news that you only shared with me a few days back, Shubham, was very interesting news and very sad news also coming from United States, which talks about this new law which has been passed by the Texas. And this bill actually bans anybody for the abortions as early as 6 weeks of pregnancy. The Supreme Court has ruled 5-4 against providing any kind of relief to abortion providers. So if we see that the Supreme Court has in fact supported the law which has been passed in Texas to ban abortions as early as 6 weeks. Now, this can be considered as a major victory for some people who are the anti-abortion advocates. But again, what Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who is a very close justice to Barack Obama, has termed it as, an unprecedented law against the rights of the women who seek abortions throughout Texas. So it kind of balances off those two things. And it's a good discussion point from here on. Even President Joe Biden has called it as a decision which can be considered as an unprecedented assault on women's constitutional rights. And he has, in fact, stated that he will be providing all necessary support in this regards to the Texas wherever possible.
Absolutely, Saurabh. I was reading a lot on this law, but again, it comes out to the part where we as humans, we cannot definitely comment a lot on it because we're not experts in the human body, right? But if you look at it from a humanitarian perspective as well, it's not just about the child who is there inside, right? But it is also about the woman who's bearing it and what were the conditions again under which they're seeking abortion, because there can be so many reasons behind that. And the law has been really unprecedented, I believe, because it bans abortion under any circumstances. It is not just whether a woman was forcefully abused, or even where it was a malpractice, right? It takes away a lot of the rights from the person who's not ready for something.
Yeah, even
And
if you look
that
at this
is,
law,
yeah.
even if you look at this law, under this law, which states that anyone can sue anyone who performs, aids, or intends to aid in an abortion, regardless of whether they have a personal stake in the abortion performed. I'm just reading as it is, in between what you were saying.
No, absolutely, sort of. That's the thing, right? A lot of key stakeholders are involved in this, and it is important that we look at it from different perspectives and angles, where you need to consider. Uh, it's just that one person, or as even we as individuals, we can play an important role in understanding this thing, right? But a lot more deeper understanding of this law is required in order to see why Texas has actually passed this law.
Absolutely. And there will be discussions going on in the coming days, and we'll see how this situation unfolds in Texas and also in other states of United States of America, because it is a probability that since it has been passed in one Republican state, it might continue to be passed in other states as well. But it's not about Democrats or Republicans here. It's more about, where does the common public stand in this, and where does the majority of the people stand in this. And again, there can be two sides to the story, as you just rightly pointed out. Some of them can definitely agree with what happened, and some of them might disagree with what happened. There are two sides of the story, and that's where Ultimate Global Podcast comes for you into picture. We are here to discuss on both the sides of the stories, and we are here to bring to you both the perspectives of the sides, so that you get to know and you get to decide what's right and what's wrong. We are not here to tell you what's right or what's wrong. We are here to discuss some topics and discuss the theme of that topic and bring forward to you different perspectives from both the sides. We leave it up to you what's right and what's wrong. Well, there is one more news which we would like to talk about today, is related to the tax plan of America. As we all know that one of the main promises of Joe Biden was to tax the richest of the people, quite similar to what his opponent Bernie Sanders was saying in the primaries of Democrats, as we all know. And the major elements of the Biden's tax plan would raise nearly $3.5 trillion, and it's going to charge 28% of corporate tax rate, which will be raising around $857 billion. But the main obstacle to this plan is the PPLI, which I was reading about, is the private placement life insurance. It poses a serious obstacle to his plan of guaranteeing high income individuals on the large gains that they are earning at least once per lifetime. It's a massive loophole. as per what I studied. And but it's entirely legal, and it's quite easy to exploit by those large owners, isn't it, Shubham?
Absolutely. I think we need to understand when we talk about this, these capital gains or PPLI is mainly related to one-time inheritance taxes, right? So, and again, it boils down to two questions. When should we pay those taxes, and why should we pay those taxes? That's right. The why is a very big question over here. Once on one hand, if you talk about social responsibility, then definitely why not? If you have more, you can give more as well. Again, if you have more, why should you give more? It comes down to that. And that is why all these loopholes also come into practice as well. But if you look at it from a very large picture, Saurabh, US is not the only country with a very high tax rate. In fact, it is not the country with the highest tax rate even. The Scandinavian countries charge a higher tax rate, almost reaching up to 57% of your income tax. And their capital gains tax structures are also very different. So compared to that, US isn't charging much. But then again, US also has a high net worth of individuals with the highest billionaires in the world at the moment. So definitely the tax reforms will help a lot of people. But again, the question is it all right to tax them?
Absolutely. It's a big debate, as you know. That was the main one of the main points between the presidential debate last year that happened in October between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Because the backgrounds also they are coming from, one is coming from the business background, and
Business, yeah.
how Donald Trump has been quite supportive towards all kinds of businesses across United States. Joe Biden has not been that direct in going against the businesses, as similar to what Bernie Sanders does, because Bernie Sanders is considered to be one of the most vocal personalities I have seen in the United States. He's
Absolutely.
always raising his voice against the minimum wage, which I completely support with. But he has not been able to come with a solid plan, because if you look at the idea of minimum wage is definitely supportive, right? Because everybody needs to have that minimum wage in their life to support their basic livelihood, to sustain their basic livelihood. But there needs to be a better plan into place, which I'm sure the US president might come in the near future. Well, that's it for today's Daily Dose podcast. We'd like to thank Shubham for joining us today. And before we end the podcast, just to let you know that we are now out on Spotify as well. So you can check our Spotify link in the description, on Facebook. So if you want to listen to us on Spotify, everyone who is on Spotify now can go to Spotify and look at our Daily Dose episodes. We are also coming up with a special weekly episode starting from the 16th of September. And tomorrow, we are having a very special guest joining us. So stay tuned for our Daily Dose for tomorrow. And we hope to see you again, Shubham, in one of our Daily Dose episodes.
Absolutely, Saurabh. More than happy to join. Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for having me today.
thank you so much. See you. Have a great day.